Water quality issues are at the forefront of agriculture today. Everybody's talking about that. But you know what? As farmers, we're out here trying to make money. We're trying to raise more crops. So there seems to be a disconnect sometimes between what we're doing on the farm and what non-farmers believe. So today we wanted to talk a little about water quality issues and some of the misconceptions, and also about how important riparian areas are and what you can do on your farm to improve water quality going forward.
Okay, water quality issues, first of all, anytime they happen, and I'm probably sensitive because I'm a farmer, but it seems like anytime we have a water quality issue, immediately it goes back to, well, was there runoff from a farm? What are the farmers doing in this area?
Farmers must be to blame.
And I don't know why that is. My personal view is that I think it's because farmers don't really fight back. We don't do a good job of uniting with one voice and really getting the truth out there, and we aren't being proactive on these issues because honestly we really take it for granted that we're trying to do the right things for the environment. We're trying to put fertilizer on so all of the fertilizer stays in our field, and you know, we're very environmentally conscious, but also we don't want to waste money too.
Okay, we got two main water quality issues. Here they are. Number one is phosphorus, by far and away number one, okay? Not nitrate, that's number two. Phosphorus is number one. Here's why. Because phosphorus is the limiting factor for algae growth in water. So any of these algae blooms that happen, it's because more phosphorus gets into the water. The reason why it gets into the water is not leaching. The reason why it gets in there is phosphorus is virtually immobile in soil, and if soil moves into the water, then the phosphorus moves into the water too. Okay, so we need to prevent erosion, and we need to place phosphorus deeper in the soil. That will solve that water quality issue. Number two is nitrate. The reason why nitrate gets into the water is from leaching. So either it's gone way down into the groundwater or it's gone out tile lines into water. Now let me first say with nitrate, the drinking water standard is 10 parts per million. Almost never is there a higher level than 10 parts per million in any of the studies, any of the quality studies that we've done pulling water right out of tile lines, okay? So for the most part, farmers are doing a good job. But here's what you can do to reduce the amount of nitrate that's ending up in the tile or in the groundwater. It's understand what your soil can hold, look at your cation exchange capacity, multiply times 10, never ever exceed that number. Number two, when we're not exceeding that number, make sure you're split applying. And then number three, use nitrogen stabilizers. So as long as you're using the appropriate amount of nitrogen, putting it on at an appropriate time, using a nitrogen stabilizer every time you put nitrogen on, the odds are you're going to have very little nitrate that ever leaches through the system. Now, just understand that there's always nitrate in water. There's never perfectly pure water. There is no such thing. Everybody talks about clean water. It doesn't exist. Okay, there is always something in water.
Well, in a laboratory you could have H2O and that's it. But in any kind of water, you're going to have minerals, you're going to have other things in there.
Yep, I don't know how. You'd have to clear everything out of there, and it's virtually impossible. So to think that there is something like 100% clean water doesn't exist. What we care about is as long as there are minerals in there at very low levels, everything is fine. It's not going to hurt anybody, doesn't do any damage. No harm's going to come from that, okay? So that's really what we're trying to talk about here, is just understand it's phosphorus, it's nitrate, reduce those two issues, and for the most part, water quality issues off the farm go away. Now, that's not to say that we're not still going to have water quality issues, because let's face it, in the United States today, most of the water quality issues are coming from water treatment plants, sewage treatment plants, and people in town putting way too much fertilizer on, and then all that fertilizer runs off onto all their pavement, and then it ends up in the storm sewer, which then goes to a lake or river. So that's where most of the contamination issues come from. We're not going to solve that as farmers, but we have to manage ourselves so we don't get further regulation on the farm. What we really strongly encourage you to do is put grass and then even trees alongside any water body that there is. So if there happens to be erosion coming off your field, it catches in a grass waterway, then it catches in a riparian area, and almost nothing ends up getting down into that water. So with these riparian areas, we think that's incredibly important, whether it's 50 feet or 100 feet wide. You need to do something there. And I know you say, well, hey, that's going to cost me some money, and what do I get for that? Well, all of us as farmers have to just chip in a little bit and do our own thing. So when we farm next to water, we have to understand we've got a little bit of cost there. Farming next to the water, we've got to have a riparian area.
All right, one other issue that we've got in agriculture, and this is one thing that we have control over, is tile inlets. When Brian talks about, well, phosphorus doesn't really move in soil, And when we look at nitrogen applications, many of them are made over the top broadcast, whether it's spreading urea or broadcast spraying 32% or 28% as a carrier for herbicide or whatever the case may be. We've got a lot of stuff that is up either on the surface or in the top couple inches of soil. And when we've got tile inlets and we have lots of water and it saturates everything on top and it flushes right down those pipes, that's where we can see some issues pop up.
Well, yeah, because you're going to have soil, chemical, and fertilizer all going right down into your tile line, which is probably going right in the river. That's absolutely not what we want as farmers. Get rid of those tile inlets. What we've done on our farm and what we advise farmers to do all over the world is put in basically like a mini drain system. So have a bunch of tile lines in your potholes in your field, have a bunch of tile lines close together, maybe 15 feet apart or something like that, and a little bit more shallow, so you can get water out of there fairly quickly. Yes, it's not going to be as fast as an inlet, but it's much more environmentally conscious, and it also creates a bigger reservoir, because usually what we see is most guys just run one tile line right to the center of that pothole. Well, wouldn't you rather have about 10 tile lines all running through the entire area of that bowl? Sure, you're going to have a lower water table then, and then that way when you do have rain, you have more holding capacity there, so the need for having an inlet is less.
Well, the other thing is when you're outletting that tile water, if you outlet it into a grass water strip or you outlet it into a buffer area where you've got some room where you can try and absorb some of those nutrients, a place for any soil that may have gotten in there to get filtered back out. We've even got a bioreactor with wood chips on our farm to try to filter out any nitrates that are in the water, and it's been fantastic.
So the whole point is we just don't want any more regulation on the farm. I don't know about you, but I've about had it with all these regulations. If we just manage ourselves, manage our farm so the water coming out of our farm is drinking water quality, then what can non-farmers really complain about? So I realize there's going to be a lot of information just thrown out there and people are going to blame the farmer, but boy, if we have data showing that the water coming off our farm is of drinking water quality, then there's really nothing more that any legislative body is going to do.
Well, one other thing that may catch non-farmers' attention as they head past your fields is weed control. If you've got our Weed of the Week, we'll show you how to stop it later in the show.